All right, I'll go ahead and call our special meeting to order. Tracy has taken roll call, and we'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. And now we'll move on to item 3, which is the canvass of the May 7th, 2024 election ballots. And I'll turn this item over to Mr. McHugh.
All right, thank you. So fortunately, the Missoula County Elections Office conducts our elections, and so they'll be helping with the canvassing, which is a requirement of running the election. And we have Bradley Seaman here from the Missoula County Elections Office, and he'll walk us through the process. And thanks for being here, Bradley.
There we go. Yeah, perfect. Figured it out. Thank you, guys. We put together a PowerPoint. Forgive me. We are in the middle of overlapping elections, preparing for the upcoming primary, so it's not the prettiest PowerPoint, but we'll walk you through all of the steps, and I'm going to be mindful of your time. As we go through this will walk you through what the canvas is and does. We're going to skip past the video. That'll be available on our website, but we're going to try and get this wrapped up in time for you guys to prepare for your next meeting as well, and really dig into the nitty-gritty on the numbers here. So we'll talk about the overview, what this process is. I'll dig into some terminology. It wouldn't be an election without a few overvotes, undervotes, some other terminology that we'll want to help clarify for everybody. We'll talk a couple of election-specific numbers, like what is our turnout, what's our ballot return rate, what's our error rate on the election. We'll talk about all the forms in front of you guys. We did a really great job. We'll walk through the forms, and we've got them tabbed to help assist with the actual canvass process. Then we'll discuss the process, and then we'll canvass your elections. So we'll skip right past this video here. It's a fantastic video that takes you all the way through what a process for a canvass is. And I'm going to sum it up with these slides here, because this is the process to certify our election results. As we go through this, we're going to make sure that the number of ballots we accepted into the system, your first tabs, your blue colored tabs here, matches the number of ballots we counted. That'll be your yellow tab, what we counted for the election. And what we do is we make sure that we didn't miss any ballots or count ballots more than once. This canvass process is critical because humans are a part of our election, so this is going to point out any errors, and then we'll go through and we'll ask you as the Board of Trustees to then turn around and you're going to say, well, we're going to say if our results reports match, and if they do match, we'll go through, and then you can certify election results. You can inspect those physical ballots. So we can call another trustee meeting for a time to come and review all of the ballots, or we can do a recount of the election, which would be a hand count of all of the 30,000 ballots for this election, and we would schedule a time for the trustees to come together to do this. As we go through this process, I'll give you a quick update. We did find a couple of errors, but nothing that has an impact to the election, so we likely won't need to call for those other two, but that'll be a vote for you all. So, sorry, get ahead of myself. We've done quite a few canvasses because we just finished with all the other school districts, and we're preparing for the upcoming one, so we could certify, or if there's a large error, inspect those ballots. We'll go through each race individually, so I've got them tagged out on our results report. I've also got a great overview of each of the different ways that they broke down between your high school and your elementary schools. If they do verify, then we can ask you to vote, certify those elections, and Mr. McHugh has all of our upcoming documents to sign off on our canvas. So let's start with some of our terminology here. I want to talk about a couple of different things. A rejected ballot. When we reject a ballot, there's going to be multiple different times when we do this. At first, when we're verifying signatures on the envelope, the number one reason we reject a ballot in an election is what we call a household signature swap. My partner and I were filling out ballots at the table together. I signed their envelope, they signed my envelope. In that case, we're able to resolve that, correct that information, and update it for a voter. If a voter doesn't sign their envelope, or that signature they have doesn't match what's on file, we'll reject a ballot at that point in time, and we'll reach out to them. So we would say, Mr. McHugh, you forgot to sign your envelope. We're going to have a form for you to update, and then that makes sure that they get the opportunity to participate in that election. We'll also reject as we're removing those secrecy envelopes after we've verified the signature. So in this case, we did have an instance where we had two secrecy envelopes inside one signature envelope. And under Montana law, we have to reject those ballots. So we'll talk about that point where it comes up. Even more, we had some where we opened the secrecy envelope and there were two voted ballots inside there. I always picture this as a couple of partners sitting at the table. They're gonna save Missoula County voters 68 cents in return postage, and they're gonna pop them together inside the same secrecy envelope. Since we can't determine whose ballot that is, we'd have to reject at that point in time. In that second instance, we can't notify those voters. A missorted ballot. As you can see on these reports, in this small election, we had 26 ballot styles. We number them. And so a missorted ballot would refer to a ballot, and we did have this where we had one that was style 11 that got sorted and tracked through in style 1. These tend to be human errors. As they're sorting them, they're literally reading that code, placing them in the bin, and then as we confirm that, we want to update those reports to show why we tracked a different number. Signature verification. That's that process of looking at the signature. We check every individual signature off of what's recorded into the voter database. So every time you move and fill out a voter registration form, we track that signature. That's important. If you look at my signature when I moved here when I was 18, it was textbook cursive. After I became a notary and had to sign thousands of documents, it shortened drastically, and my signature got updated. So we track all of those different signatures. We see this for young college kids moving to town, me in this example. We'll also see this for signature degradation. Somebody getting older, they may get trembles, they may get shakes, so we record each of those so we have multiple to look at. You'll hear me talk about reconciliation. Reconciliation is our hand accounting for every single ballot to confirm that the number of ballots we accepted match the number we counted. We do this both with the voter database and all of the reports provided to you, and we track it outside the database. As we go through that reconciliation process, that is required across the state of Montana for all elections. Then I wanted to talk about a provisional ballot. This is going to be a ballot that's issued to a voter that has the opportunity to vote in another election or has additional information that needs to be verified. When you register to vote, we ask you for your driver's license number or the last four of your social security number. If those two can't be verified, you're considered provisionally registered. And we're gonna wanna reach out to you to get that information, to clarify and verify that to count your ballot. That's usually due to illegibility of a form as it comes through. Oh, I see in your last name, Bradley, it's S-E-A-M-A-N, not M-E-N, and that's why it wouldn't verify. In addition to that, if your ballot is rejected, it becomes a provisional ballot, and those are counted the Monday following the election. As we went through this process, we had 4 that we added. We also had 1 ballot that was requested to be counted by hand, and to help protect that voter secrecy, we included those all together. So our rejected ballots are treated like our provisional ballots, and they're counted the Monday after the election, if they're resolved. Election where? This is for our report. This is going to be our end of the night election report, the one you're used to seeing on our website at the end of the election. This is what compiles all of our counting systems together to produce the election results you will use to canvass. A tabulator or a DS-850 is our high-speed vote counting machine. If you've ever been to our counting center or seen it on the news, those are the equipment that you see counting our ballots on election night. And then finally, for some of the ways we count votes. Especially in school trustee elections, we see a lot of overvotes and undervotes, and it's because of the way that they're established. An overvote is voting for more than the number of people who are eligible for the election. Since the ballots tend to be vote for 2 for a 3-year term, voters will vote for 3 candidates. We've tried it, we've flipped that. For a 3-year term, vote for 2, and still we get people voting for 3 candidates. Since we can't determine which candidates they meant to vote for, all 3 are marked in the correct fashion, those votes are counted as an overvote. And for these elections, you'll see them doubled because it's a vote for 2 race. Similarly, an undervote is not voting for enough candidates. So if a voter skipped the trustee race and they lived in District 1, so they voted in School District 1, they had both elementary levies, they had both high school levies and the trustee, if they skip that and only vote for the levies, it's going to show up as 2 undervotes. So as we go through this process, you'll see a substantial number when we get to our undervotes. and that number is doubled. And the number one reason for that is it's a vote for two, and voters may skip the trustee races if they don't feel they have enough information on the candidates. A resolution board. In our counting center, when we go through, if a machine is not able to read a ballot, it goes to a board of humans, and they're going to determine the reason that that was kicked out of the machine. Did they vote for 3 candidates in a vote for 2 race? Well, we kicked that out to make sure that somebody didn't attempt to erase a candidate and mark off, I did not mean to vote for Bradley, I meant to vote for Pat. If they have that note, we can correct it for them. If they don't, we still want to confirm that, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that voter's vote was counted in the right way. So blank ballots, overvotes, and damaged ballots all get kicked out for review. Blank ballots specifically, I know if you vote in a gold gel pen, our machines won't read it. You may have voted for every single candidate, and the humans can interpret that, duplicate your ballot, and make sure your vote counts. The machines don't pick them up. Then a write-in board. If you are a declared write-in board, it's going to go over, and a board of humans is going to review those ballots to confirm, are any of these write-ins declared? Did they file for office? And then we'll tally those together. There was a law change that came out of Missoula County in the last legislative session. The only time we count write-in votes is if somebody filed a declaration to declare this. So that changed the way that it works. It streamlined our process, and it saved taxpayers thousands of dollars every election. I think that's it for terminology. Any questions from you guys? I'm kind of zipping through this pretty quickly, but this should be similar. Yes, sir.
So voting for one was okay though, right?
Exactly. So if you voted for one candidate, what you'll get is 1 vote for Mr. Mercer and then 1 undervote. So those numbers, you may pick one candidate, it'll count that one race. If you skipped it, it would count as 2 undervotes and it would go on to the next race, but your whole ballot is not invalidated. All right, let's hit some numbers. I am getting right through this for you guys. We'll dig into the nitty-gritty where we compare. I always like to use both of these numbers. If you look at that very first sheet that's not tabbed, this is our report from our computer system. The computer system we use is called ElectMT, and this is the Secretary of State's voter database. Our overall ballot return rate is 44.3%, and that is that issued column, the second column in there, and the accepted column. So we're taking the number of accepted ballots and dividing it by the number of issued ballots. That gives us a 44% return rate, which is pretty good for a school district election. Then I also like to point out the difference between our turnout number and our ballot return rate. Every registered voter is considered an eligible voter, but only active voters get a ballot in the mail. So if you moved, we reached out to you multiple times, but if you didn't respond, you go to an inactive status. We'll have voters this year that show up, literally come out of the woodwork to vote in the federal presidential election, and that's the only election they vote in. They're considered eligible and they'll get to vote, but they're not sent a ballot in the mail. We have over 12,000 inactive voters in Missoula County, so that's why our turnout number is so much lower than our ballot return rate. The registered voters and the accepted ballots is what gives us our turnout, where when we really want to look at the election, it's nice to look at who got a ballot and voted it compared to everybody who was eligible, including those who didn't get a ballot, to who voted them. Now, as we went through this, we had 1 missorted ballot, which was corrected and tracked. So when you look at that tab here on your guys' packet, it's going to be your light pink tab, and forgive me, I really blew it up on our slides here, but you'll see that we had 1 ballot in style 1 that was missorted. It was a style 11 ballot. So we wanted to track that to show why it came through and where that ballot went to. We also had 2 rejected ballots. So we had 1 ballot that had 2 voted ballots in 1 secrecy envelope, and then we had another one that was rejected with an empty affirmation envelope. The other area that I really wanted to point out is in style 2, and I'll break into these numbers as we go through. There was 1 unexplained difference. We could not determine why we had 1 fewer ballot counted than accepted and received. This could be as simple as somebody in our counting center removed this from the stack that was not counted and placed it into the accepted bin without having it go through the resolution process. With humans involved in the election, I always expect to see a very small amount of errors. Now, this is the biggest one, and this is what's really going to track for School District 1. It appears we had one whole batch of ballots, 25 ballots, which looks like it could have been run through the system twice. It's much more likely that a stack of ballots is tabulated 2 times than it is that a system goes through, marks it accepted, and it's recompared through that reconciliation process. Every ballot gets 7 touches before it's done, and in those multiple double checks, we would expect to see it in those reports. There is a potential that the report was not accurate or that a batch of 25 ballots was run through the system twice. Now, for you as the Canvas Board, it's my job to point out the number of ballots that we issued, the number of ballots we accepted, and then for you as the Canvas Board, I'll ask you to either certify those results, request a recount, or inspect those ballots based off of any discrepancy. Here's the nice touch. None of the races for your election were within a 25-vote margin. They far outseed that margin, and in a close election, under 10 votes or less than 1/2%, we will come forward for a recount, either a mandated recount or a recount that could be petitioned. So there's a lot of safeguards in here, but I wanted to start this with pointing out the fact that I've got a discrepancy of 25. We have those 2 rejected, so it looks like 23 that were counted incorrectly. And I believe that it was a batch of ballots ran through the system twice, and the only way to know that would be to go through every ballot, count those ballots, and confirm that number. We reach a diminishing return where the cost of pulling together our recount board, which would be the Board of Trustees to do this process, we're going to go through that, and we're going to find that maybe we did determine that batch was ran twice, and the election results are still valid after removing those totals. As we go through, I'll break that out. I'll point out each of those races and those discrepancies, but I like to start with that and let you know that the error rate was, let me see how I do on my math here with the Board of Trustees for a school district, 0.07 error rate, 0.007. So 0.07, 0.007. That margin is far within that area, which would be acceptable, and if it was a very close election, we would be proposing to you a little bit different as we go through this canvas. So for our numbers, 44% return rate, 37% turnout. We basically had 2 big errors, one unexplained difference and one batch of 25. These 2 errors really equate to a lot more total errors. It's that easy to get off, and that's why we take so much detail as we go through this process. Let's talk about our forms. They're all labeled, they're in front of you, and we talked about them briefly. I have for you 3 sets that are labeled with the blue tab. I've got my very first set that I didn't put any math on for you. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I was just curious what out-of-county votes are.
Well, so as we Thanks, just in the nick of time. So when we're looking at this out of county, I've got 2 districts that run out of county because School District 1 High School District has a small portion of Lake County that is within the high school district. When we run an out-of-district election, the parent county, the one that has the more voters, in this case Missoula County, is going to send a ballot to Lake County voters. And in order to track this, you can see this really clearly when you're looking at line 3 on this blue tab sheets. Those numbers in red, I manually adjusted. And the reason they're in red is they don't appear on the reports, but I wanted it to be crystal clear that we issued an additional 146 ballots to Lake County voters, because those voters just up in the Swan Elementary School District will actually be in High School District 1, and I believe they feed to Sealy Lake. Had to go through all of that and see if I was right on there. Those would be our out-of-district. Similarly, we had it for the fire district. Frenchtown Rural Fire District extends deep into Mineral County, and we had 482 voters. In order to track these voters, we receive a list from that county, and then we use a good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheet to go through, track each of those, and we mirror it identically to the Secretary of State's database. So those would be our out-of-county voters that we're looking at. You'll see them really reflected on that very, very small Canvas report. And as we go through, that's what those numbers refer to. Now, the yellow report, our next tab that's all tagged for you all, is the electionware report. So this is our compiling them from our election night results. And this is what we'll use to confirm your Canvas results. So our first step, we'll go through and we'll compare accepted to counted. The second step will be making sure our results match. Sorry. One of the nice things that we've been working really hard on is there was an additional step in this process, and that was confirming that every single machine was included in the overall totals. The way we've been able to generate and run this report, you can now see System 1, System 2, and System 3 in the overall totals, as well as our hand count and provisional ballots. So we no longer require the Canvas board to manually read off each of the vote totals from those systems and add them all together. We've now generated this report in a way that helps assist with that. The Canvas report, this tiny report, forgive me, I wanted it all on one page. I really blew up the important parts for you all. This is the reconciliation reports, those ones we manually fill out to mirror the system. We took every single one of those reports and hand entered it into the database. You will see a few errors with this. When we label these reports, it is really easy for our team of humans to label a School District 1 report for Style 1 as Style 11. Similar with Style 3 or 4, and a good one to point out is you can see as we dig down, we're going to look at our rec sheet totals. When we dive way down, we see a couple of these that are off very slightly compared to the system. Number 16 is a good example of that, where our reconciliation sheets show 238 ballots, but the system, the machines that did our count, showed 239, and the reports showed 239, and a human made an error on those results. So this sheet right here is what we use to track through our reconciliation reports, which are the ones that show up on this very next slide here. So on the far left, those are our reconciliation reports. For every ballot that comes through, we're going to fill out that paperwork on the left for each ballot so that we can track that we got 25 envelopes, and this one had an empty secrecy envelope, and that's why we counted one fewer. This is how we generate those overall numbers, and this is how I can explain those missorted ballots, but not the unexplained difference, not the 25 ballots that got tabulated twice. Then we're going to have your canvas of votes and certification of results. This will be your form you sign off on should you want to certify the election results, and these forms are the official certification of Canvas, and that's what makes our results official. Yes, we went through, we reviewed this, we looked at every discrepancy, and we determined that there would be no impact on the election. And then if you want to certify, you'll sign this report. So, two different steps we're going to do. First, we're going to use those blue tabbed reports, and we're going to confirm that all of the ballots we accepted are the ballots that we counted. And we'll do this by confirming our BP 04 report to our purple tab reports for our overall numbers. And then we'll also compare those to our Canvas report. As we go through this, I'm going to do this in our steps next. This is just an overview, so we'll get a chance to walk through exactly those discrepancies and do our overall totals. We use our reconciliation sheets to help show that. I normally bring them with, but due to the time frame of this Canvas, we actually moved them to our warehouse. So I normally have stacks of paper to show you all of the detail we've gone through. The next report that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that all of the machine totals have been included in our overall total and that our machine totals match our Canvas reports. So we did a great update to this by including each of the systems on that. So we used 3 850 tabulators to count, and we hand counted those 4 provisionals plus that 1 hand counted ballot. As we look at this, we'll then reconfirm that these vote totals match our Canvas report, and that's how we'll know whether or not all of the machine totals were included in our overall report. I like to point this out because this was very critical when I started in 2006. In 2006, We had precinct level tabulators for every election. And the precinct level tabulator may have 15, 20 votes on that tabulator. And it could be easy to miss that from the overall totals. So we used to go through and confirm each of those different totals, each of the overall systems, but as we've grown, the vast majority of voters vote by mail, and we've narrowed that down for 3 to 5 systems and put it on the report to show you. Okay, that's a lot of info. I'm really trying to be mindful of time. Who wants to try it? Let's start with one of these and let's dig right into it. So we'll jump right in, and what I'd like to do is I'm going to start working on our BP04 report, and I've done this by helping tab our BP04 reports. We can take our overall report, and we're going to work on BP1, the blue tab 1. And then we're going to compare that to the purple tab 1. This has worked out really well. We canvass with the commissioners, and rather than going through the jargon every time, blue tab 1, purple tab 1. On here, what we're looking at is School District 1 Elementary Schools election, and it appeared on 2 ballot styles, style number 01 and style number 02. According to the system-issued report, we counted in 17,100 ballots from System 1, 1,974 ballots for an overall total of 19,074 ballots accepted by the system. Now, when we take a look at P1, this is where the calculators are going to come in handy, and we're going to take a look at these numbers. When we look at the overall total votes cast on the trustee race, if we take 19,074 and we times it by 2, we're off. And the reason that we're off is that extra batch run through the system. So if I can have you jump to the next slide here. When we went through this, we had that batch of ballots that went through the system twice. But we did have one ballot style of 02, which is that unaccounted error. I can't tell you why we're short on there. And then we have that one rejected ballot. And so in our rejected ballots, we have one, I'm sorry, it should say style number 1 up there. We did have a rejected in style 3 as well, and we'll catch that on the next election. It'll add to this. But we had that rejected ballot where we had 2 voted ballots in that one secrecy envelope and that missorted ballot. So we need to subtract those from our totals. When we do that math, what we find is that we have 23 additional votes, more than we should have had as we went through this slide. So you can see that, and I've blown it up on the screen to help show you. It really appears that there are 25 ballots, one batch counted twice. You'll hear me not use definitive terms here. If I knew for sure that's what happened, I'd tell you for sure we ran a batch through twice. It could also be a report from the system got deleted, and those 25 ballots that were accepted got deleted from the system, and it didn't match at the end. We dug deep into all of our totals, and it's most likely that ballots got run through the system twice. We had that one rejected with multiple ballots in an affirmation, and one rejected due to 2 voted ballots in one secrecy envelope. We track each of those as we go through. So on our counted versus reported, we're off by 25, but we have those explained differences. This does balance as we go up to our number of votes counted, and that's that critical part. But when your first part as a canvas board is to confirm the number of ballots accepted matches the number counted, and I know that we are off on that number. We're reporting that discrepancy to you, and that number of 25 votes is not going to sway any of these election results as we go through, but it'll be your option to certify, ask for a time to inspect those ballots, or ask for a time to recount. Does this part make sense on comparing the number we accepted to the number we counted? Great, I'm trying to be fast, but I also want to make sure that nobody's left scratching their head. Yeah.
Just really quick, I think you've explained this, but you feel like you double counted a batch, and that's why the numbers are off. So explain again the volume of the double count, like how much were in that batch to make the overages?
It looks like it was one batch of 25 ballots.
Oh, just 25,
Yep.
okay.
And
gotcha.
that's just our arbitrary number we selected to make it a manageable batch size. You'll see some counties that run 50, 100. We like 25 And especially because if we run into something like this, it's a smaller number. If our batch was 1,000 ballots and we counted them twice, we'd be having a lot different conversation tonight. As we go through this, 25 is a really easy number for us to hand count to make sure it doesn't fall off the table as you're sorting them. And it's just the number that I inherited when we started. We've talked about increasing that size, but as we see things like this come up, keeping them small has a benefit. So we know this number. For all of our school District 1 races, we're off, and we're off by 23 votes because we have that missorted ballot, we have that one rejected ballot, but we had that one batch run through twice, and you'll see those numbers equate between our election night reporting, your yellow tab, and those pink tabs. We track these. I've got that listed, that one that had the 2 secrecy envelopes. It is stored, it is kept with our ballot so that we can track and report back. Everything's signed off by those 2 workers who go through. So we've looked at that. Now we'll want to look at blue 2 and compare it to pink 2. And this will be all of the ballots accounted for in the overall of the election, and we'll see that same aspect. Now, the high school district encompasses the majority of this election. There are only school district 40 ballots and ballots for the fire district and Frenchtown Rural and Missoula Rural Fire District that don't have it. So the high school district was issued out and accepted in on styles 1 through 21. We have that same error that we explored with system 1, and then we had one additional rejected ballot in style 3. So we can show that and we can track that. That's not an unaccounted error. That was, we had one rejected due to 2 ballots in the secrecy envelope. They flagged us, they were there, they were present, we had to reject that, and that's going to be accounted for in your total. When we take every one of those districts, total them up, we'll get 30,372 total accepted ballots. On this, since it becomes a vote for 1, and we're looking at our levies, so we're looking at our total votes here, we have 30,395. That's our discrepancy of that 23, that batch run twice through, subtracting out those other ballots. As we look at those results, we have the same issue, and it grew just a little bit by that one extra one for that school. It was School District 1 in the high school, so those would be people who were just School District 1 high school. They were only high school voters. They weren't in the elementary as well. As we see that, we can see clearly that our overall number mirrors that same issue, and the number of accepted ballots compared to the number of votes counted, we're up on the number of votes counted by 23 there as well. Does that make sense to everybody? Perfect. Halfway done. All right, we'll catch the next one. So what we've done here is we've worked to make sure that the number of accepted ballots matches the number of ballots counted, that none were missed, but we do have 25 that were counted more than once. I like this. The instructions from the Secretary of State include that verbatim, and it's been that way since I started the election process. We're not the only people who've had this happen. This is not unique and specific to Missoula County or this election. The next step is confirming that all of the machine totals were included in our overall total. For those of you who were here with me a year ago when we did this, I had one person read off the report number. The other person used their calculator to include and verify, and we totaled them all in. Now we're just going to confirm all of the machine systems are included in our overall report. You can see that they align out, and you can see that none were missed because they match our numbers that we accepted, as well as the numbers we had counted, plus that 23. Questions about this process, making sure that all of our systems are included? I love it. We're zipping right through things. So now we're going to do our final set, and this would be confirming that our Canvas report, the yellow report, matches the totals on the purple tabs. So you'll see on the yellow tab, P1. This is going to be really helpful so that what we can do is we can confirm that the number of votes on P1 matches our tab here, and we're looking that Eblin received 7,232. Schmitz, 3448. Stanger, 4440. Walsh, 10061 are write-ins. Our write-ins are recorded as a write-in, so if somebody filled in that oval, we didn't go through and track to see did they vote for Superman, Mickey Mouse. We just recorded it as a write-in under that new law. Nobody has filed a declaration. 403, 56 overvotes, 12556 for our undervotes. Now remember, this is doubled. So if you skip that race entirely, you'd get 2 undervotes. If you voted for one candidate, it would count as 1 vote for that candidate and 1 undervote. Normally, this is where I get the questions that say, why so many undervotes? And it's usually because of the levies, where people feel more confident in the levies than the trustee candidates. That gives us our contest total of 38196. Let's jump on to our second page in here, and you'll see where I have P1, and I'll read these results. Yes?
Bradley, just I was going to mention this, and the canvas shows Carla Schmitz, but it should be Carl Schmitz as the name on there.
Let me get that updated for you guys. This is me. You fixed it already. Thank you so much. I was like, I hand enter this data in the weeks after the election. And so we've been through, we've re-reviewed, we checked all the numbers, and I fat-fingered that. So on the report that you all will sign, should you agree to certify these, we've got it updated. Thank you very much, Pat. Jumping in, we're going to look at, and forgive me, my titles may not match yours exactly. We're looking at the elementary, and we're going to look at the general fund for the elementary. P1, it's on the top of page 2. 11395 for 4. 7604 for against. 4 people voted for both for and against. 95 people skipped that race, undervote, for a contest total of 19,098. On to the building reserve. I think you guys had a safety. This would be 9630 for 4, 9303 for against. 4 people voted for both, 161 skipped for our undervotes, a total 1998. What we're looking at there is confirming that this report matches your Canvas report, because I manually update your Canvas report, and I just want to make sure there's no typos. This is normally where we find a typo, is Bradley was entering this in the weeks following the election and got off by 1. So we've confirmed that this is all correct. Let's do the same process for the high school. It'll be on that same page, and we'll look at P2. Thank you so much. You've already updated it back there. So I'm just going to read them off. For the high school general fund, 15480. Against would be 14660. 1 person voted both for and against. Undervotes or skipped would be 254, a total of 3395. And then for the safety, for the high school, we put them in for our title as building reserve. We had 13743 for 4, 16395 for against. We had 3 overvotes, 254 undervotes, 3395 for our overall election results. What we've done there is we've confirmed that all of the machine totals were included in this overall total, and that these totals, now with the thanks to Mr. McHugh, now match exactly over to your Canvas report. At this point in time, I normally pass this back over to the board, and you have 3 options for each of the different races. You can certify these results. I want to make abundantly clear that we tabulated 1 set of ballots, likely tabulated 1 set of ballots twice, but with the margins between our successful candidates or successful levies, it has no impact to the overall outcome of that election. Noting that there is a discrepancy, you do have the ability to inspect those physical ballots. So we would schedule a trustee meeting, we would go on a field trip to our warehouse, and we would open all of the sealed boxes of ballots to count. Or we could schedule a recount, which must take place within 5 days of this meeting. We would put together a recount board made up of the trustees. We would take a field trip out to our warehouse, and we would conduct a full hand recount of the 30,395 ballots.
To make sure I understand one thing. So the top two, P1, P1, those are the ballots that went to Missoula only, right?
Yeah, those would be the
The elementary, right?
elementary, so it would be
And then
one
the
and two.
P2s are just the ones that went to Lolo, Bonner, et cetera? Or does it include both?
It includes both, because that would be for the high school, elementary school, different district, high school, same district, and then 1 and 2, the styles that are on P1, are also in the high school district. So it is the sum of everything, minus those few ballots from Frenchtown and our out-of-county. Great. So at this point in time, I'm not totally sure your procedures, but when we work with our Board of County Commissioners, I have somebody go through and I have them provide a motion to either certify, inspect, or recount, second, and then sign off. And we normally would do this by that election. So you're going to be looking at your elementary school and your high school. I really worked hard to divide them out, trying to be mindful that half are our high school and half are our elementary school trustees.
Yep, any final questions for Bradley? Because we'll do two motions. We'll do the elementary, like Bradley suggested, to accept the elementary election. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by trustee F. Garris. Second by trustee Witt. Any trustee final comments? Any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous, all elementary trustees present. Is there a motion to approve the high school election canvas? Moved by Vice Chair Walker Andrews, second by trustee Wake. Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the high school election, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous, all trustees present. All right, now we'll move on to item 6. Thank you, Bradley.
Thanks, let's do this again next year.
And now we'll move on to item 6, which is public comment for this special meeting. Is there any public comment is set aside for the public to address the board as a body? It's not time for board response or the public to ask questions. Do not infringe on the right of privacy of others. Please sign in and spell your first and last name. You are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Any public comment?
No public comment tonight.
All right, the time is now 5:50 and we are adjourned for the special meeting. Time is now 6 o'clock. I'll go ahead and call our school board meeting to order. Tracy has taken roll call, and now we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, now we'll move on to item 3, which is to review, revise, and approve tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written? Moved by trustee F. Garris, second by trustee Wake. Any public comment on the agenda item? Seeing none, all those in favor for approving tonight's agenda as written, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous, all trustees present. Now we'll move on to approving the regular board meeting minutes on May 14th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Moved by trustee Wake, second by trustee F. Garris. Any public comment on this agenda item? All trustees in favor for approving the regular meeting minutes of May 14, 2024, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous, all trustees present. Now we'll move on to item 5, which is public comment and correspondence. We did receive some written correspondence in the email. Public comment portion of the meeting is set aside for the public to address the board as the body. It is not time for board response or for the public to ask questions. Do not infringe on the right of privacy of others. Please sign in and spell your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Their chair may interrupt or terminate an individual speaker if the statements are out of order, are over 3 minutes, or personally directed to an individual. Any public comment?
We do have public comment tonight. Rachel Herring. After you sign in, please say and spell your name into the microphone for us. Just go ahead and hit the button on the right on the microphone. This large thing. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Herring. My name is spelled Rachael. Last name is Herynk. May I start? Okay. I live in the Cold Springs neighborhood. My comments tonight are in regards to the bus stops in our neighborhood. Currently, for kids in our neighborhood that attend Chief Charlo, there's two bus stops, one at Meadow Hill Middle School and one at Cold Springs Elementary. Those are both on the northern aspect of our neighborhood. So for kids in the central portion, it's a 10 to 15-minute walk for either stop. For kids in the southern portion of our neighborhood, it is a 22-minute walk. We feel that that's a lengthy walk, especially for the younger elementary school kids. For families that walk their kids to the bus stop, it's, again, a large time commitment because we're accounting for the time waiting for the bus and also walking back home. This places a strain on families in our neighborhood. Given the time commitment, most families drive their kids to Chief Charlo, which I feel, again, is another strain on families. As I emailed, neighborhoods of similar size and similar topography oftentimes have 10 to 12 stops in their neighborhood with routes winding through their neighborhood. I have been unable to find an example that looks like our neighborhood. My neighbors and I have advocated for a loop in the center of our neighborhood to allow kids in that area and the southern part of our neighborhood greater accessibility to a bus stop. This request was denied, most recently for issues involving snow plowing and time constraints. In regards to concerns about snow plowing, I've spoken with 3 people at the city, including the Deputy Public Works Director of Streets. He assured me that when MCPS adds or adjusts bus routes, those streets are then prioritized for snow plowing, just like other school routes. In regards to the time constraints, again, I feel there's a disparity for our neighborhood. For example, our afternoon route is allotted 2 minutes to account for those 2 stops. When I look at other neighborhoods, they oftentimes have 1 to 3 bus routes running through their neighborhood, each route 5 to 10 minutes. When MCPS moved the elementary school out of our neighborhood and redrew the boundary, they committed to providing adequate bus transportation for kids in the Chief Charlo boundary. With our 2 stops on the northern part of our neighborhood, we feel that this is not meeting the needs of families in our area. And we ask that MCPS provide another stop to allow for greater accessibility for our students. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Is there any other public comment tonight? No further public comment.
All right, so we'll move on to item 6, our reports and announcements. There's no oral report for the Health Trust Fund report, and next I'll turn it over to Superintendent Hill.
All right, well, welcome back from Memorial Day weekend. I hope everybody's doing well. Not that I count, but I'm told there's 8 days of school left. So that is predominantly on nobody's mind, parent or student or staff. The only other announcement would just be a reminder about graduation, that Willard's will be Thursday at the Wilma at 6 o'clock.
It says on this that May 31st, which is Friday, so is it Thursday or Friday?
I have it as Thursday.
Thursday. This says Friday, but it's on a sheet, because that makes a difference if I can make it, sorry.
Okay, well, that's a good double check. I have Thursday. Anybody have something different? Okay. Friday is practice day for the other 3 large high schools, but Saturday, Big Sky is at 9, Hellgate at noon, and Sentinel is at 3 o'clock at the Adams Center. And then Sealy will be having their graduation Sunday, June 2nd at 1 o'clock at Sealy High School. So we're looking forward to those celebrations with our students and staff, families. And that's it.
Trustee Mercer.
Just because I'm now ignoring the piece of paper and moving this to Thursday at 6 at the Wilma, did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
You good? Okay. Moving on to item 7, which is old business. First up is personnel negotiations and policy, and approved second reading of policy revisions and new policies. And this is back over to you, or Superintendent Hill.
No worries. Yeah, so tonight, bringing back for the second reading, we have not received any public comment on these policies. 3 were new, which we've talked about, including our early literacy targeted interventions programming. The English language learner program was a modification to language instead of limited English proficient students. And then activity trips, just clarifying that school districts can use other legally approved modes of transportation for activities. So if we use a classy excursion or suburban, something that qualifies, we can transport kids in those. So those were the new ones. The others were updates. Some are a little lengthier than others, just because they were essentially a rewrite. But an example would be in Class 1 districts, we're required to record audio and video all of our trustee meetings and post them within 5 days of the meeting. We've been doing that for some time, so nothing new for us in those regards. So would stand for any questions on any of the trustee or any of the policies.
Any trustee questions? Seeing none, this is a full board motion. Is there a motion to approve the second reading? The recommendation moved by trustee Wake, second by trustee Garris. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. And now we'll move on to 8, which is new business. And first up is the multi-district year-end funding. And this is over to Mr. McHugh.
All right, thank you. This is a typical item that you'll see this time of year when we're approaching the end of the fiscal year, and we're looking for board support for preservation of funds, if there are any general fund year-end funds available. At this point, we don't anticipate that there will be or any of any significance, but if there are, then we have been able to preserve Medicaid funds, building reserve funds, rental funds, and then we've made our deposit to the interlocal or multi-district agreement. So these have been beneficial moves and would stand for any questions.
Any trustee questions? There'll be 2 motions, an elementary and a high school. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the elementary recommendation? Moved by trustee Garris, second by trustee Witt. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment on this agenda item? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. Is there a motion from a high school trustee? Moved by Vice Chair Walker Andrews, second by trustee Wake. Any final comments by trustee? Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. So now we'll move on to the second topic, which is the Elementary Retirement Fund Budget Amendment, Proclamation 2024-10E, and this is back to you, Mr. McHugh.
All right, thank you. This item is also something that we see, or the board sees, about this time of year. This year, we're only recommending a budget amendment to the retirement fund. We would pull those funds out of reserves. Right now, we have reserves of $1 million in the retirement fund in the elementary and $850,000 in the high school. We're allowed to carry reserves of 20%, and both those reserve amounts are at 15 to 16%. The need at this time of year is to cover retirement obligations that are paid out of the retirement fund, mostly to TRS and PERS. And so we're just making sure we have enough budget authority when we go to make those payments. To the extent we don't need the funds, they'll remain in the retirement fund and be reappropriated when you adopt budgets next year. So funds will remain there, used for retirement fund purposes.
Any questions? Trustee Mercer.
How does the reserve get funded? Where does it come from?
It comes through our countywide levy. So we estimate the obligation for the year well, really the county does, based upon our identification of staffing. And so, like the transportation fund and some of our other funds, we try and build up a little reserves because of the fluctuations that happen during the course of the year.
Trustee Witt.
I know you said that we're under the 20%. If we were to go over, what happens?
Yeah, so the funds, if you go over, can be taken, I guess is the best way to describe that. Well, the state has before, and not by our funds, not any of our funds, but there was a time when the state lowered the reserve limit, and then it was a means really on the retirement fund to pull funds out. So the reserve limit was 35%. They dropped it to 20%, and really did sweep accounts in excess of 20%. And it was a completely unfair way to build up funds at the TRS level, at the retirement at the state. But they did it. And so we definitely stay below the limits.
Any other, Vice Chair Walker Andrews?
So is this fund totally money that the school district puts in, or does it have in it contributions by employees?
This is countywide levy, so it's property tax levy.
Any other trustee questions? This is an elementary motion. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation by elementary trustee? Moved by trustee F. Garris. Second by trustee Mercer. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. And next up is the High School Retirement Fund Budget Amendment Proclamation 2024-13S. And back to you, Mr. McHugh.
Yeah, similar rationale, and the reserves are $850,000 in the high school side.
Any trustee questions? Seeing none, this is a high school board motion. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by trustee Wake, second by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment? Art, do you have a comment?
I just wondered if you could tell us what year the 35% changed.
You know, it was before we moved over here. I wanna say it was when Mark Thane was soup, so probably 2016, I'm guessing.
Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now we'll move on to topic 4, which is to approve non-resident enrollments for 2024-2025 school year, and this is over to you, Superintendent Hill.
Yes, tonight we have before you the approval of, what is it, 20, 40, about 50 students from out of district who are looking to attend MCPS. Amy and Vinny spent a significant amount of time reviewing all of their applications, and we're happy to announce that all were approved. In the new law for these open enrollments, if we were denying a student access, it would have to be for a very specific reason that we outlined in policy, and we would have to have give the people who are being denied an opportunity to have a hearing with the board in closed session, more than likely, to talk about the reasons for why or why not for their disapproval. So it looks like we have 19 early literacy through 5th grade, or 19 early literacy through 5th grade students, 13 middle school, and 19 high school students that we're asking for approval. Once approved, we send a letter to the families within 10 days of the meeting, letting them know that they were approved. And then we send a similar letter to the respective school districts, letting them know that we've approved those. And then by July 15th, and I think that happens by July 15th, and that's for budgeting purposes because they have to report those students coming to our district. And then we will make placements for all of those students by August 15th.
Any trustee questions? Vice Chair Walker Andrews, then Trustee Mercer.
I was just wondering whether the high school ones were primarily in the online or a mix?
They're a mix.
So two related questions. So we're saying they can come, but we're not making any promises as to which school. How does that get decided? And in particular on, I guess, the early literacy where we're gonna be tight in some places and are they at the back of the line or do they have to get a full do we have to go random?
Yeah, they would be at the back of the line. So if we've reached capacity, say at Franklin Elementary, we have room for 18, and we have 20 students, we would be leveling 2 students to another site. And so we would just keep filling in until we're full.
And and then high school, do they make a request or do they say, I want Big Sky or it's closer to Florence or is it just wide open?
Yeah, so we start with the enrollment process as it exists under the law to get into the district. And then if we would say your placement is at X school, and then they would be able to make a request for an in-district transfer following an high school in-district transfer policy.
Any other trustee questions? There'll be 2 motions, an elementary and a high school. Is there a motion to approve, an elementary trustee to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Efgaris. Second by Trustee Mercer. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment on this agenda item? All elementary trustees in favor of approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. Is there a high school motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Wake, second by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Any final trustee comments? Any public comments? All trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. So now we'll move on to personnel negotiations and policy, and there'll be 2 motions, elementary and a secondary, but I'll go ahead and turn this over to HR Director, Mr. Lebowski.
Thank you. I have one change that needs to be made on here. Do you want me to tell you what it is, or you want to do that when you come to the vote?
When we approve, is it in the elementary or the high school?
Elementary.
Elementary, yeah, no, we can do that, or you can help us with that motion.
Okay. So before we do that, I'll just give you some rough numbers. I think the best way to talk about the reductions we've made and the changes in staffing is it's very nuanced. So what I'm going to do is give you basically an FTE total for class certified staff for this year, and then a final certified staff for next year. Projected, I should say. There'll be some changes. So this year we have 762.8 FTE as certified members. And next year we are looking at 707.38 FTE, and that's a difference of 55.42 FTE. And I say it's nuanced because it partly contains actual reductions. It contains those folks who were on current year only contracts or 1 year only contracts or self-terminating contracts after 1 year. It includes grant funds, federal funds, you name it. So there's quite a bit to it. And some of them are retirees that we didn't fill. But I know that we talked about this last time. I wanted to be able to follow up. On the non-tenured non-renewals, there's 33 elementary non-renewals of non-tenureds and 14 in high school.
Any trustee questions? Trustee Witcher.
So on page 44, that's all the non-tenured people that decided when there wasn't a position for them at MCPS that they weren't going to try and put their hat back in if something did open it up?
No, that list contains all of the remaining non-renewals. So either there were not positions for them, they were not selected for positions. It could be a variety of reasons.
Any other trustee questions? Nope, so we'll do the elementary motion.
Okay, my amendment to that, it's a good segue, is also on page 44. And you'll see about the sixth from the bottom is Robin Skakowski. She's listed on there as a non-tenured termination. She is in fact to be moved to page 53, which is the non-tenured reelects. As you can imagine, we've had lots of people looking at this. The unions even helped out and had members look at the list, so we wanted to make sure we got the right folks on the right list. Tracy, did you get that? Thank you.
So the motion for the elementary would be with Mr. Lebowski's edit there. Is there a motion from an elementary trustee for the recommendation with the edit? Moved by trustee Witcher. Second by trustee Mercer. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment on this agenda item? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation with the edit, please indicate yes by raising your hand. You're gonna abstain? One abstention from trustee F. Garris, the rest in favor. Elementary. Witcher, old person, Witt, Mercer. In favor. Approve. Yep. One abstention from trustee F. Garris. Is that not quorum?
4 of 7?
For 7?
Yeah, 4 of 7. You look good.
All right. Motion approved. So is there a high school motion for the recommendation? Moved by trustee Wake, second by trustee F. Garris. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment on the agenda item? All trustees in favor of approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Next up is to approve the field trip request, and this is over to Assistant Superintendent Amy Shattuck.
Thank you. Lewis Nelson of Sentinel High School will be taking about 90 students to Orlando, Florida, spring break of 2026. He's ahead of the game. They have to do a lot of fundraising ahead of time, so he would like the approval.
Any trustee questions? And is there a high school motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Vice Chair Walker Andrews, second by trustee Wake. Any final trustee comments? Trustee Wake.
The ratio is 1 to 8.
Any public comment? Seeing none, all trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. And next up is, on item 9, is Board of Trustees to issue certification of election and administer oath of office. And this is over to Mr. McHugh and Ms. Lipkin.
All right, thank you. So as a board, you've canvassed the ballots, and this is the time to certify or issue certificates of election and administer the oath of office. We're issuing certificates of election to 5 candidates. 3 were elected by acclamation. 2 candidates, the trustee Walsh, trustee Eblin, trustee Walker Andrews, and trustee Wolick were elected to 3-year terms. Trustee Wake was appointed by acclamation and will serve the remaining 1-year term for High School District A. By statute, the certificate of election must be issued within 25 days of the election, which is May 31st. To assume the trustee position, the candidate must be qualified. To be qualified requires that the candidate take the oath of office. The oath of office must be administered within 15 days of the issuance of the certificate of election, which is tonight. So the oath of office tonight will be administered by our own Aaron Lipkin. So thank you, Aaron, for being here. I wonder if Jenny Walsh could maybe come down and take a seat. I believe right over here. And so Rob Wallach will issue, he'll take the oath of office at a different time. And Christina Eblin, I believe, is on Zoom, so.
In case I can't remember the words, even though I've done
That sounds great.
Can you turn your mic on?
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
I can probably find it for you easier.
Okay, that's hands.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. So, you can sign here. Spot for you there. All right, thank you. All right. Yeah, let's go down.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I usually have about 8 in my purse. Thanks. Oh.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend,
that I will support,
protect
protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
with my office with fidelity. I'll get it out yet. Thank you.
For serving.
Tina Eblin is waiting on Zoom. Tina, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Tina, repeat after me.
You may have to use the microphone.
And can you turn,
Could you turn your camera on too for us?
This has a camera? I'm like, you guys are fancy.
Christina, can you turn your camera on for a moment?
Yeah, it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Sorry, we'll just have to proceed without video.
All right, Tina, repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I would discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so next up is board reorganization, and I will go ahead and turn this back over to Mr. McHugh.
All right, so the reorganization of the board, per board policy, we are obligated to do that within 25 days of the election and after certificates of election have been issued. The process that we use well, first the board, the statute and policy requires that we elect a chair, that you elect a chair, and vice chair for each district. Our practice is to elect the board chair by taking nominations without a second. The nominations will be listed in alphabetical order by last name. Each nominee's name will be announced, and then nominations are closed for vote by show of hands. So I'll ask for nominations for board chair. Meg.
I nominate Willina Oldperson.
All right, I'll accept further nominations for board chair. Further nominations for board chair. And further nominations for board chair. All right, seeing none, that's not because I was looking for a nomination. Please, by show of hands, identify yourself as voting in favor of the nomination. It's unanimous. Congratulations, Willina.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so next up, we'll move on to vice chair for elementary. Is there a nomination for an elementary vice chair? Trustee Witt?
I nominate Trustee Wisher.
I can nominate two, right?
What's that?
I can nominate two, right?
Yes.
I nominate Trustee Afgaris. Any other nominations? Seeing none, so we'll go ahead and vote, show of hands for Trustee Afgaris. A. All in favor are elementary.
It says elementary /
So they are, because we are reorganizing, we can do it, everybody?
We have.
We
yeah.
have, oh, okay. So, okay, all in favor for Trustee Afgaris for vice chair for elementary? Trustee Witcher, Trustee Afgaris, Vice Chair Walker Andrews, Chair Oldperson, Trustee Mercer, Trustee Witt, Trustee Walsh. All right, Trustee Afgaris, welcome. All right, now we'll do vice chair for the high school district, secondary. Is there a nomination for that? I nominate Trustee Walker Andrews. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor for approving vice chair for high school secondary, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Welcome back, trustees. And now we'll appoint the clerk for 2024-2025, and this is a full board motion to appoint Mr. McHugh as clerk for 2024-2025. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Wake, second by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. All those in favor, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Welcome back, Mr. McHugh. Oh. Was there anybody else who wanted?
No.
Next up is to appoint a grant designee for 2024-2025, and again, this is a full board motion to appoint Superintendent Micah Hill as grant designee for 2024-2025. Is there a motion to approve that? Motion by Trustee Wake, second by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. All those in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Next up is to appoint the Montana School Boards Association representative. Is there a nomination to appoint? I move to appoint Vice Chair Walker Andrews, who's been in this role, to continue to be in that role. Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, any other nominations for MTSBA representative? All those in favor for appointing Vice Chair Walker Andrews to that position, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Welcome back to the next academic year, guys. So next up is a trustee graduation ceremony assignments, and this is over to Superintendent Hill.
Yes, I believe there was a sign-up sheet going around to just let us know, and Tracy has it. If you didn't see that, all trustees are welcome to attend and be a part of the celebration and hand out, or give handshakes, I think is the role. And those dates and times and locations are noted correctly on the agenda.
Any final comments? Trustee Efgaris.
Attire, what attire shall we wear?
Not tuxedos. My understanding, past practice has been to move away from a more formal with gowns and things like that, and just, I would say, wear what you are comfortable wearing. I believe Superintendent Watson wore a Hawaiian shirt. So I will not be, but you're welcome to.
All right, any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, the time is now 6:39 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped.